You are listening to Hajduk Talks, the official podcast of the AYF West. I'm Haik Minasyan, and we're just a couple of Armenians talking in the world.
A couple of Armenians talking in the world.
Greg Nemet from the Kareen Wine Company. You're a winemaker, and you do a number of other things with the Armenian community, and it's a pleasure to have you here to talk about Armenian wine today.
Hi, thank you so much. Been a big-time follower, listener. I'm very, very happy to do this with you.
So you make wine right now, Kareen Wine. Where is that based out of? How did you get started?
Excellent. Yeah. So I'm the winemaker for Kareen Wine. The reason why I say that is it's a family enterprise. I'm not the only one. My sister is a partner, my father is a partner, and my mother is a partner in this enterprise. A true family venture. We are Armenian, and we're making it work. And we're started making wine in like the 2010, but not on the professional side. Kareen Wine was launched in 2016.
Okay.
And that's what that means is that the company was registered, and now we're an actual licensed winery, and we can sell, produce, and do things under our registered name.
Yeah.
The organic growth to it was I'm a Tiflisci. I'm from Tiflis originally.
You were born there?
I was.
Or your family's from Georgia?
Yeah, you'll find out a lot of hyphens in my story, starting with my last name not being Armenian.
Yeah.
But that's a different story.
Yeah. I still haven't figured it out. We were talking about it earlier. It's Hungarian, y'all. Don't even ask.
It's Hungarian. My father is half Armenian. His Armenian side is Abramian. And my mother is Saakyan, and we have Gyumri. So we'll tie it into the Kareen story. Right. Kareen is from the city of Kareen. So Erzurum. We're Kareen Etsis. We wanted to start this company, and we wanted to kind of market it to. We're an American company, but we're an Armenian brand because we wanted to be proudly we want to wear our heritage proud. None of that hide behind anything, but no shade to anybody else, but we are of that 21st century brand of Armenians, and we want to do it that way. So when we started to brainstorm, thank you brainstorm for the name, we had a lot of good, we were actually going to already register with another name, I'm not going to say what. And then there was a problem. Everything in wine, as we find out, there's legal. Everything is controlled. Everything needs to be anyways. So the DBA didn't work out, and then we just kind of sat there. And my sister, give her credit. She's like, no, it's got to be an Armenian something.
Hell yeah! Shout out Rose.
And then thank you. And then what do you call it? My mom, because my mom's from Gyumri, and my father is from Javakh, right? So we always thought that that's their kind of lineage until I didn't study enough to understand that
they're Erzurumci or they're Garinci.
All of that is Garin,
and their Parpar, their language,
their Parpar is all of that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my mom goes like, "Well, we're from Erzurum as well," and my dad's like, "Yeah, we're from the villages of Erzurum." And then Rose is like, Erzurum, that's Turkish, and I'm like the Wikipedia guy in the family. I'm like, but that's not the Armenian name for Erzurum. And my mom's like, yeah, like our Barbaras Kareen Etsi. I'm like, and Rose goes, oh, Kareen, that sounds name. Good, yeah. Now we didn't spell it the way that Kareen.
There's 100 ways to spell it, so
we made it make sure that the Americans can pronounce it, so it's Kreen, so that Kareen is pronounced the E. Yeah. So and that's how the name came about. So.
And where is it located, or where's your winery?
Also, everything's got a story.
Yeah,
we are NorCal based, so okay. I'm a NorCal Armenian. That's my home base. I go to an Armenian church in San Francisco. That's not where the winery is based. Winery is based out of. The story started in East Contra Costa. To the winos, to many people, it doesn't mean anything. But Contra Costa is very kind of. Important to the foundation of the California wine history.
Well, it's big up there. That's where the wine scene is up there.
Huge.
Yeah. So that interesting. I've never heard of Contra Costa. So.
Yeah, Contra Costa. I mean, you probably heard of Contra Costa towns like north of Oakland. Yes. It's Oakland's Alameda, but Contra Costa, there's like these rural lands where a lot of Portuguese settlers came in, brought a lot of good vines. A lot of hip winemaking right now is seeking out Contra Costa vineyards, which are interspersed. Imagine like vineyards in between KB homes.
And
So
that's
it's-
where you're based out of, is Contra Costa right now.
started there, not
Oh,
now.
okay.
I told you everything's complicated. Not now. Started there. Went to a place called Lodi, and that's where we're registered currently. It's
Okay.
amazing. This is kind of like the breadbasket for the American winemaking. Lodi produces a lot of like jug wines, but also produces a lot of amazing artisanal wines. So everybody knows Sonoma, Napa, right? That's
Right.
kind of like the superstars of American winemaking.
Yes.
We're out of Lodi. Currently, I'm further up. There's a region even lesser known called the Sierra Foothills on the way to Tahoe, essentially. So people think like, oh, Tahoe, that's snow. How can there be wine? No, but in the foothills before Tahoe, there are like over 100 wineries dotting that entire region. And I am working with an Armenian winemaker there.
Okay, I
And
see.
currently, we are going to establish our own brick and mortar.
Well, I was going to ask you, what is the Armenian-American wine scene like right now, currently?
That's a great question. So we got into it as Armenians from Tiflis, because Armenians from Tiflis were always around wine.
Right. There's a big Georgian wine culture.
Georgian
as well.
wine culture.
Yes.
We can go
We'll
into
get
that as
that
well.
later,
Yeah, Kakheti is a place. It's a place.
And there are Armenians.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. It's good to talk to someone that knows.
Yeah, I got you.
But we'll talk in broader strokes. But the Armenian-American wine scene, from what I understand, so here's the thing. Armenian wine scene is slowly blooming and blossoming now, and I'm very proud to see what's going on.
That's cool.
The post-Soviet rebirth.
Yes.
The Armenian-American scene, I know a lot of Armenians in sales. I know a lot of Armenians in distribution, but
Yeah.
growing up here as a kid, like I love California. It's my second home. Armenia's first, Artsak's first.
Yeah, Artsakh.
Then it's California.
California, yeah.
California, I dig. NorCal especially.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see much, dude. And right now, sorry.
Well, there's a Fresno, agricultural Armenian scene, right?
True. So what I saw was that, yes, as I started to kind of come out of my college days shell, like I was very Amerikatsi in college, like I was like, and then I started to kind of like research the American Armenian story, right? The raisin maid girl is Armenian, right? The Armenians of Fresno are very fundamental to the agricultural story of California,
Which is
and
one of the biggest in the country now.
absolutely,
Yeah, it's huge.
absolutely. But everything that I was coming up against was that we came in, we brought the Thompson seedless grape, and then we did the
grape leaves too,
grape leaves. We everything was on the food and table grape side of things, which are completely different grapes than wine grapes.
Yeah.
But I knew that we could not, that can't be it. So I started researching in the 40s and in 50s. I came up with a couple of Armenian wineries. But to answer your question, how it is today, there was a basis. I even saw in a book like Krikorian was a winery. No longer is. I didn't see it because there was I went into a database of like old California winery
Names,
right?
whatever.
And it just started. I might
Looking
have
for the IANs
right,
and-
looking for IANs. Maybe there were others that had non-Armenian names. Remember, Rose was very instrumental in us being Kareen, but I didn't know. Maybe there was like a Del Monte was an Armenian
You
brand,
wouldn't know,
right?
yeah.
I couldn't figure that out, but I did see a Krikorian, right? And I saw a bunch of labels there, and it says Fresno. As a winemaker, I know Fresno is a great place for raisins and table.
hot, huh?
It's hot, dude.
Yeah, it's hot over
hot.
there.
It's not a good place for winemaking per se.
And so that might make sense as to why Fresno, even though they did all other sorts of vineyards with other great products, they didn't get into wine because just the climate wasn't right for that. And if there was an Armenian community maybe in like that Napa area 100 years ago, maybe they would have gone more into wine. I don't
That's
know.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. But from what we know, like Napa Sonoma was very much like Italian influence, and then the others
Hey, come on!
we're in an active kitchen environment, which is very cool for this episode. I know that Sonoma was Italian, a lot of Italian influence, obviously American, Anglo-Saxon, some French influence there. I also know that probably, and I haven't researched enough, probably the Prohibition also did a lot of Armenians in as well, and they protected themselves by turning into raisin makers,
By not getting into it,
by not being
yeah.
into the alcohol side of things.
That makes sense.
This is a hypothesis, not a fact.
No, but it makes sense. So I believe it.
Right.
I believe anything you say.
Thanks, man. Thanks, appreciate it.
But but today, like, would you say there's like a handful of Armenian-American like wine companies?
True, absolutely. So first of all, the gentleman I'm making wine with, shout out, LDT, good guy, Ed Cholakian. Not to be confused with Vino Cholakian. Also, there's Sharon Kazan doing good stuff in Napa. Her brand is Rare Cat.
Nice.
There's a good guy named Ganel that's making amazing wine here. He made it in Central Coast area, Paso. The brand is called Lilar Wines.
Nice.
There is Agajanyan, so shout out to that's
a big family. They're famous.
That's foundational. That's foundational because I saw them as a kid going like, why are there no Armenians in American wine? And once in a while I'd see this Agajanyan label. They're big landowners, amazing people doing good stuff. And now that there's this new craft wine industry that's starting to boom, I see through the grapevine Armenian last names peep here and there. But Haikjan, I'll be honest with you, that's not enough for such a humongous industry.
You think there'd be more, for
there's
sure.
2,000 wineries in California alone. We're 85% of American wine production. Shout out to Vino. He picked out an Armenian winery in Washington. Not going to shout it out.
No
because
way.
No, it turned out to be a Russian lady married an Armenian.
Oh, and took
He's
the
no
name.
longer involved. He goes in there and they're not even Armenian anything.
That's pretty funny, though. But he found one. He found something he thought.
Now I'm finding Armenian growers, as we are, good businessmen, right? There's growers in Sonoma. I did a lecture in UC Davis, which is like the Harvard of viticulture in America, and there was a not an Armenian, but a woman who's friends with a Armenian wine vineyard manager in the Sonoma area. Mendocino, these are all names that Mendocino, apparently an Armenian, was foundational in trying to help them get started in how to plant things, because we are, we're agrarian.
We knew the craft that came from the old country.
Yes.
And that's actually like what I wanted to ask next is like, does this have anything to do with like a tradition that came from the old country? I mean, I'm sure the agrarian culture of Fresno, those Armenians, they came from their skills in the old country.
Yes.
Because we're seeing a blue, like this Armenian wine scene in Armenia also growing, and I'm trying to think of if there's a connection there that goes back, or it's just because we're in California and winemaking became big here. We're just also getting into it as well, just because we're geographically in the area of winemaking.
So
and maybe that'd be Armenia too, I guess.
No, actually, so there's all the things that you said are correct. So obviously, our skill came from the old country.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I start to look into our foundational aspect of Armenian viticulture in America, a lot of that is obviously we brought in the raisins, right? But we also made wine. Where did that skill come from? That came from Western Armenia. To fast forward and see what's going on now, I'm a Georgian Armenian, right? Yeah. So we think Georgians made wine in Georgia. Okay, we'll be PC about it, but every Armenian that I know from Georgia whispers, because again, we were very much culturally battered there as well.
Yeah, we are.
Let's be honest.
I've been there.
Thank you.
Javak, by the way.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Not so much Javak. That's not a viticultural area.
It's more the Kakheti side.
Kakheti side, closer to Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
Every now and I'm going to research this because don't quote me. There's whispers in Tivlis Kakheti was founded by Armenians. I was like,
I've heard that too.
This is one of those crazy Armenian fables that we did everything. Half the time, we are actually right about these fables. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
And the Georgians hate it. The Georgians hate it because they always find out it's true. I'm kidding, but I think Kyle went to Kakheti as well. I don't know if you were there, if you've gone to Kakheti, but I think he was looking around, asking around as well. I've heard that as well. It's not if you Wikipedia it, you don't really see that stuff there. But you're right to say, I guess it's in the whispers of Tiflis and stuff. But that's a core wine region. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's Georgia's Napa.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna talk about anything I don't factually know, but I'll tell you this: in the '90s, we're Tiflis Armenians, right? We were actively pursued to change our last name, to change our last name to make it Georgiafied, right? Shvili. So, for example, there's a famous Armenian-rooted guy that became a president, Saakashvili. The Saakashvili is rooted in Saakian, which actually my mom's last name, no relation there. Absolutely not. No, we know there's zero relation. Yeah. Saakians became Saakashvili. Dze is the other way of. So if that was happening in 1990s, we could imagine the Armenians of 2 centuries ago in Kakhetia probably felt through the same thing.
When I was in Tiflis, my Armenian friend was like, "Hey, look, everyone you're looking around at right now, half of them probably were Armenian at one point. They just assimilated over the last 100, 200 years, which is really sad to think. And that's a whole other conversation. I'd love to do an episode on Georgian Armenian history, actually, because I've been in Javak and stuff. But I guess we could quick now kind of like transition to that part of the world since we started talking about it. Wine culture is big in Georgia. It's also big in Armenia. And if anyone's kind of been following, this kind of trend in Armenia, we're seeing a lot of new brands come out of Armenia, harnessing the old Armenian, even grape or the winemaking culture. I mean, or not even that. Whenever you go on a tour, you go to the Arani winery, right?
Yes.
4 or 5. How old is that? How many thousand years old?
The wine cave is dated to 6,100 years old. Carbon
Isn't that
dating.
insane? That's like 4,000 or 5,000 BC,
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
And so we're seeing that it's this old thing that definitely existed in the Armenian Highlands. But would you describe like the Armenian wine scene now as like a kind of coming back? It's new or whatever, right?
Absolutely. So the way that you can describe it, right? The Vitis vinifera is the grape that makes the wine grape, right? And the what do you call it? The studies that are being concluded, right? So, for example, this is gonna be a long-winded answer to your question.
Take us there.
So,
let's do
so
it.
like the Burgundian grapes in France, which is like the mecca of winemaking, right? My hat's off to them. They're awesome.
Yeah.
They know that a lot of their grapes originated over the Alps in Italy. A lot of Italian grapes have, especially in the south, have a name suffix like Greco. So that tells us what those grapes. The Greek colonizer south of Italy was colonized by
Greeks,
Sicily was all Greek.
Well, wasn't wine taken all over the Mediterranean because of the Greeks?
Absolutely. Greeks and Phoenicians.
Phoenicians as well.
I'm going to give Phoenicians a little credit because part of French grapes, right? So France is an interesting study. On the Burgundian side, you see that there's like literal connectivity to Italy. On the southern French side, they know that it came from Spain. So you're like, well, if it traveled one directionally, no, but Mediterranean is a circle, right?
It's all over the place.
Phoenicians brought it from the other side, and Carthage actually brought, for example, the grape Grenache. In Spain is Garnacha, right? And it's more indigenous to Spain than France, even though French make amazing Grenache. But it came to France that way.
Okay.
But again, we're now starting to figure out where are the origins. So we got the Greeks, we got the Italians, Phoenicians, right? Where did the Phoenicians? We know that Babylon spoke of the wine merchants coming down the Tigris, right? And I know you definitely understand
where we are.
Yeah, where did those merchants flow down from into Babylon? And then from Babylon to Phoenicia we're talking about centuries of development. There's centuries and centuries.
So Xenophon talks about seeing early barley being made in Armenia when he traveled. This is like during Alexander the Great's travels. We have a record of that written down saying, they're making this alcoholic drink from barley, not wine, let's say. And you're saying that in the Babylonian text, there's something like this as well. We're saying that from the Tigris, came the wine merchants. And then that's maybe how it... And is that like the oldest record, or is that one of the earliest record?
Well, here's the thing, right? Our oldest record now is coming through this Areni cave, right? Then we can talk about where are the first ever depictions of wine production, right? Because we need to understand where we cultivated the grape and where it was domesticated, right? Because grape is a vine. It's a wild thing, right? And it's actually everywhere. There's a native to America grapes as well that now we're trying to make into wine, back to the American side of things, right? A little bit harder. It has a story in the wine world. There's something our American grapes did now that saved the wine world.
That's very interesting.
Well, for later.
There's so much to talk about here. So there's so we have the oldest winery in Armenia, but you're saying that
the Highlands.
Sorry.
The Highlands we got it. I got you, man. And I didn't answer your question. The Highlands, the Armenian Highlands, is where you can see the oldest carbon dating to
domesticated grape.
Domesticated grape and produced. Not just that they were like our humans. Let's not call them Armenian. I'm always searching for the answer. I'm not just gonna appropriate everything, right? The humans that lived in that area that then now are called Armenian.
Yes, that's the right way to say it. Yes.
They domesticated the grape and then were able to ferment it, and that's important. How do we know that it was fermented? Because in the Arani cave, you see contraptions used for if we look at where we found the seeds. in Armenian cave. We can understand that we can take that method of production and today make something the natural world in Berkeley loves called natural wine, which is the simplest way of producing wine.
Right.
Okay.
In the big garasas.
In the big karasas, in the vats. Now we also know that the Armenian cave was a sacrificial wine, and obviously, from there, already 6100, so there was already religion present, right? So
Yeah.
it's like we're starting to get understanding that the human evolution we were much more developed 6100 years ago than we think or we thought, right? And then obviously wine plays a very, very major role in Armenian Christianity and Christianity in general. And again, that just keeps going and going.
No, it makes sense that also like alcohol and spirituality kind of played hand in hand. As far as back, we can assume that we were worshiping gods. There's probably alcohol involved.
Absolutely.
Alcohol production and everything. Well, let me ask you this in a nice controversial question. Why do the Georgians always say they're first? Or why do they go, in a simple, lame way of saying it, because the way I'll explain it or why I think about it is like, okay, we have the proof that the oldest production site of wine could be found in Armenia, but then they'll claim wine, the invention of wine was there? Or is that a marketing tactic of theirs? I'm not even sure.
This, again, with wine and just with the Armenian cross-border questions. Here, I'm gonna be as blunt as possible. I am not the wine, and I'm not the Armenian that claims we did everything first.
Yeah,
however, I am always curious, and I am very proud Armenian that when I see evidence, I will then start pointing to it. The oldest contraption with wine evidence in it is 6100 years in Areni. Another fairly old one is this cultural element in Georgia called like the Shulaveri, human tribal development. And if you look at where the sediments were found, they're like 5 feet away from the current Armenian border. Now you're into maps and I'm into maps as well. We understand that Armenia's current borders are something that happened in 1991. That it doesn't mean that ancient Armenians did not live outside of north of whatever, right?
No, exactly. And there's also that up until this last 100 years, borders were not even a static thing where people were like on one side of it. There was always crossover, and Georgians lived in more south of where they are now. Armenians lived more north of where they are.
Absolutely.
And those identities were also just like more mixed too. It wasn't so clear that Armenian Georgian as well. So.
My theory is that obviously winemaking was in that region.
South Caucasus region.
South Caucasus. I mean, hell, if you want, we're gonna bring Georgian into it. We got to bring like Parthians into it as well. Iranians were around it. Assyrians
Greeks
were kind of in that area,
there.
right? But what we're trying to say is that we're starting to see that Armenians were fundamental towards its domestication, towards its production, and towards its distribution, which is why you see evidence of Armenian merchants coming up and down the Tigris. I haven't seen one of Georgian. I haven't seen one of, but again, I'm curious, so I'll research it. For now, is what I'm saying is what I see and what I read.
Well, I don't think this claiming of it is even that, one, it's like hard to even prove something like that. It's also not as important as we make it out to be in a way. Like, we try to nationalize these foods, and in reality, one, we can't really tell the truth of the fact, and then two, is it really that important? I'm thinking it's more of just a marketing tactic that the Georgians or even the Armenians would kind of say like, "Oh, it's the oldest,"
Once the Armenians can start using it, I'm good. I just saw a Greek gentleman it's actually a Cypriot gentleman. They're distinct. They Greek Cypriot. I was at a wine show, and he actually pointed to me as he was explaining. People were asking like, "Where did Cyprus get their vines?" I didn't ask it, and he goes, "Well, the Armenian winemakers," and I'm an American Armenian winemaker. I was like, "Thanks, bro."
That's cool.
It was very cool that he had the knowledge to understand. Like, and also, if I know something came to Armenia, right? Like coffee.
We have our own word for it, but we know it came from Ethiopia or whatever, right?
So when I know that, I'm always happy to kind of give homage to the founders, right? And the fact that first time in my life someone like pointed to me, and I was it was a foundation.
It felt cool.
It was a foundational moment for me. Back to the Georgian thing.
Yeah,
they have been making wine for centuries.
Long time.
And they are a wine culture, 1000%. They have very distinct winemaking styles from Armenia. Their styles are more ancient, and I can explain why that is. Armenians definitely, let's not forget, Georgia had more of a surviving kingdom for longer. Armenians were
Conquered more
often and under very restrictive rules, not to be Islamophobic.
No,
we had
it's true though. But what you're saying is that because Armenian alcohol culture also included all these other elements like the cognacs and the oris and stuff, that it seems like the Georgians were more like it was a larger ratio or portion of their alcoholic drinking. It was wine. Maybe.
True, and but that you hit the nail on the head. That also came in the Soviet realm when so up until let's rewind. When we were under the Ottomans, we were prohibited from making wine unless it was for church reasons. So like the everyday person's production of wine almost stopped. You know what I mean? So that's one side. So Western Armenia had a really kind of we were chopped at the head in terms of getting
It slowed it down. It didn't become a profitable kind of a thing to do.
Yes,
and
absolutely,
so it slowed down
absolutely. And also we couldn't sell it to our neighbors because they were all Muslim, right? Georgia had a different story there, even though they were also conquered many times. However, when Soviet Union ushered in the production,
how they managed production region by region, right?
Yes,
they said you can make this and you can make this.
Absolutely.
And so they gave the Georgians the license to do the wine.
Georgians were the main producers, as well as Crimea and as well as Moldova, but Georgians predominantly were the main kind of like the quality wine region of Soviet Union, and Armenia was the standard bearer of the cognac. Now called brandy because you can only call cognac in the cognac region.
Cognac,
although Armenians were allowed that name usage,
while,
that's a different conversation altogether. So many things.
There's so many
things. And that's when things just kind of hit the S hit the fan, is because now you have generations of Armenians, Hayastansis, right?
Yeah.
That predominantly drink hard alcohol.
Right.
And because for 70 plus years, the wine making was reduced to just like home-based wine, and etc. and church,
or even longer. In what you were saying about the Ottoman Empire, not being a market thing that they can really go out and sell. The ori makes more sense. Something you could do in your backyard, and you can just keep it within the family, and you could do smaller production of it just for the amount that you need. So I'm understanding now that even though wine production and wine culture and in the books it's there, it started in Armenia and most likely was bigger part of our culture at one point, because of these historical factors, empires, administrations deciding things that ruled us, kind of affected the more recent history of why the Georgian culture has maybe more of a wine thing, and then we are more diversified in our alcohol.
Absolutely.
And now to bring it back to today, we're free of the Soviet Union. We have the Ararat Valley and many other places in Armenia that we can, hey, we have an opportunity to create wine again, and it's kind of starting to blossom a bit. So, could you tell us a little bit about then the Armenian wine scene in Armenia right now? What's the name of our grapes, or what's so special about it? Give us the whole thing.
Dude, absolutely,
absolutely. That's a lot, but
no, in 5 seconds or less.
Yeah. You have 2 minutes.
Got it. So at the foundation of the wine industry, at the viticulture, is that vine, right? The thing that another added layer to pointing to the Armenia's current and future rich culture of winemaking is the indigenous grape that's still currently, God bless it, growing on the land.
We have that.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Georgians have their variations, but we have our varietals, right?
Cool.
Areni being foundational to ours, Khandorni, Voskehat.
Yeah.
Some were much more abundant in Artsakh, right?
Yeah, there's a few there.
And currently, obviously, given the geopolitical, situation and the war that befell on us in 2020, there's already like a redrawing of even that wine scene, because the Artsakh grapes grew in the lowlands. The highland Artsakh that is still currently with us is not as good.
I know Hadrut was big on it.
Hadrut was huge.
And we lost Hadrut. So.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised now if you're going to see on the market
Azerbaijani wine.
Azerbaijani wine, but we all understand that Azerbaijani and Turkish wine is like an oxymoron, and we can be very sensitive towards it as Western, Americans, but in reality, your culture is not steeped in it. And if you're making good wine, that's cool. I'll try it. I'll drink it. I won't drink Azeri wine, never, ever, ever, nor Turkish, but I'll drink a non-wine culture maker's wine. I think if you're a good winemaker, I'll drink it. But to answer your question about the current industry, right? We have foundational grapes. We have amazing technique that's being reborn. For example, the karas making,
nice.
Right? The aging of wine, not in oak vats, oak barrels, but in
clay. Is it clay? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's clay. It's absolutely clay,
basis.
and clay is porous, so there's a little bit of that breathability. I won't go into the science. It's important for aging wine, and it's the pronunciation of the grape is different than if you're doing it in an oak barrel, because oak barrel will impair a little bit of a different flavor onto the wine. So we are in this explosion of now kind of understanding, dude, we got
our potential.
We got the base. We have an amazing viticultural structure, and we have the possibility of doing something amazing with it. But we still need to kind of research and figure out which styles of wines and how to make it. And currently, this is the excitement of the industry. And as we speak, they are like exploding. The labels are there's foundational families there that are.
Can you name some of them for us? What are the so Garas, as you said, the winery is also the name. Like Garas is the.
Karas is the vat.
But it's also the name of one of the companies.
There's a big company. It's a Tierras de la Armenias, I think. It's like it's an Argentinian. It's a Yornekian based.
I've been to their winery.
Right. So that's a large label. Then there's also the Kushkerian families. Kush is an amazing bubbly. Obviously, let's also credit Ararat brandy factory, right? At the base of brandy, cognac is a grape, right? So they are also part of the viticultural family of things because they're continuing to source grapes, make grapes, produce grapes.
They kept it going, maybe.
They kept it going, yeah, absolutely. So we're not starting from ground zero. There's also a couple of bad, like Soviet era wineries. I won't name them, right? But currently, there's amazing brands. Are like Zulal is a good brand. Malahi is a great brand. It's a brand by a professor, and I think his son is now the winemaker of this amazing. It's a brand I love, and it's now available
Malahi,
in LA. Malahi is
I've heard a lot of these, but that's the one I actually haven't heard of.
Right, Malahi is actually, and again, don't quote me, but Malahi is apparently the ancient name for the grape that's called Areni, and Areni I think is the village, right? So before we now call that grape Areni because of the region. Just like kind of like Bordeaux, there's that, but then there's other grapes in Bordeaux, but
I see though. I understand.
The original name, as it's being told to me, again, I'm a learner. Malahi is the original name of Areni, but now we know that grape as Areni, so that's the name.
Well, Areni is another company too, right? There's
right.
Areni winery.
Areni, that's the old school one. And there's also Ijevan Wine Company. It's also so those two are the foundational old school ones. There's Armenia LLC doing a lot. There's Vanardi that's doing great things. There's a lot of artisanal things that I'll be in Armenia soon. I'm gonna start to kind of re-network again with these people because I want to see what's going on the kind of the craft side. The everything that I just named, these are somewhat of big producers, and of course one that I really tip my hats off is Zora Wines, and he is kind of like he's pioneering things there in the Vyodzo region, the region that just got hit by Azeri rockets just a week ago. It's something we cannot negate in the conversation about wine because wine is terroir. Wine is land thing. It's a land thing. So I don't know. Did I answer your question in terms of?
No, I have a great idea.
Who are the good guys? Who are the good producers? How and it's exploding and they're multiplying.
Well, so that's the exciting thing about it. And and what's great for Armenia with this product is a high quality, or it's a high value product that is easier to like ship around the world. I know that it is accessible, like if in Glendale at least, you know, you can get some of these Armenian wines, you know. So there's a lot of potential there. We have the story behind it. We have the skills and tradition and this, and I think the Armenian diaspora will be instrumental too in like growing this whole like making it an international brand that even more than what it is now. However, Georgian wine, and again, I'm not, you know, bringing them up to bag on them or anything. It's just that let's say they're our competitor, right, in the region, like, right?
In the region, yeah.
It seems like they're still ahead of us. Maybe it's because of the time and the reputation that they've built. But you know, what's the difference there right now? You know how?
So okay, great question, amazing. These are like advanced level wine themes we're going through here.
They'll know. They'll love it.
Got it. So Georgia is obviously different. So number one, different grapes.
Right.
Different grapes than Armenia. Armenia, different grapes. So, and grape being the foundation of the thing we call wine. Therefore, flavors are different. Terroir is different too, meaning the soil structure. In Georgia, a lot of the areas where Georgian wine is made is flatter. Armenia, Viodor is really, really high altitude.
Yes.
Areni is a grape that a lot of Europeans are looking at now because it's a thriver in high altitudes, which is very important. Malbec is another one, but it's a French grape that's predominantly high altitude Argentinian wine, right? So we have terroir, we have the grapes, we have the winemaking techniques. Like I said, Armenians are kind of reverse engineering and figuring out what these grapes are going to do well. By the way, also Armenians are doing well with something called engineered grapes, like hybrid grapes, grapes that were crossed in the Soviet time. So, you know, we didn't stop there. And Hachtanak is one of the grapes, right? Clearly from the 1940s victory of over Nazi Germany,
they
right?
named it after that. So
and I think it's that one. Otherwise, there's a lot of other Hachtanaks we've had, and we're gonna have more Hachtanaks. So, anyways, Hachtanak is a good word in the Armenian lexicon.
I like it.
That's a grape right now that's being used, but that's not an original Vitis vinifera.
It's a hybrid.
It's a hybrid grape. The difference with Georgian wine industry, first of all, it's like 20 times bigger than the Armenian one per capita in terms of production and growth.
Is that a natural thing though, or is that like kind of government like supported as well, or like initiated?
Good question. Amazing question. So it's a government. So for Georgia wants to do this. When the world hears the word Georgia, we want you to think grape and wine. Yeah. Whereas with Armenia, it's kind of like there is a Wine and Vine Foundation that's kind of an institution within the administration currently, part of the branch of the Ministry of the Economy. But we can see how they're managing everything, and things are a little bit, you know.
They're trying things without really having any experience to know how to do it, I feel like.
And it's kind of like, you know, Hike, you're doing something because you're patriotic and you want to get a lot of information out there, right? And there's no one sponsoring you. There's a lot of good things that Armenians are doing that there's not. The unity in the Georgian growers is much bigger than we're right now trying to establish something with Armenians, both on the diaspora side, on the import side. Shout out to Kini Fest, shout out to Anush. She's doing a lot of things. Anush O'Connor, she's doing, I believe she's in Armenia now. It's an effort, but it's not a concerted. It's not. There's no like. I don't see anything from top down. No. With Georgia, it is top down.
I see.
With Georgia, every time you go to a trade organization, I feel like a lone wolf. Like I'm there, like Armenian-American.
Yeah.
People go, like, "Hey, is your wine Armenia?" I'm like, "No, mine is Zinfandel. It's not even." But I'm trying to rep the brand Armenia. But they come in with like, you know, like Georgian this, and they're like the associations are governmental. I actually have a neighbor that's a Georgian winery up in the Sierra foothills.
There you go.
They're very much supported by the government all the time.
So there's a heavy marketing strategy and initiative, top down, and then like even like just as a culture, maybe like they're pushing their branding is like doing really well right now.
We started, Georgia, the birthplace of wine, where in reality,
and that's
like,
why I was bringing that up earlier.
Scientists,
they say stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know?
Scientists are like, well, you're ancient. We'll give you that. Like I network right now with amazing people. My partner is a Lebanese importer. I'm seeing what they're doing now because Lebanon produces predominantly French wines that are from French grapes, but they have indigenous. Remember Phoenicians?
Yeah, they have it.
Brought and as grapes were propagated from the Armenian Highlands, they were then over hundreds of years they were crossed and something else like there's different.
They can naturalize whatever you want to
exactly.
call it. Yeah,
They turned into like Pinot. Pinot Noir is a French grape, right? It has its roots somewhere else, but now it is. So just like that, there are now producers in Lebanon that are producing from domestic indigenous grapes.
Nice.
There's this whole ancient wine upswell right now, and Armenians should be part of it, and I make sure that they are part of it, even though I make the new wine. I'm a Californian winemaker, right? Who did what first? Evidence shows Armenian Wine Cape did a lot of good things first.
Yeah.
And there's actually another one in the Aragatsotan is also. There's a couple other. Ashtarak region has a couple of things like. And Armenia, I'm telling you, once we have the funding to start digging, right? Once we're not defending ourselves for existence, once the Turks leave us alone, once the Azeris, leave this planet, once all these things happen, we can then show the world that we're not just BS.
All right, everyone, we got to get on for that task so we can get onto the wine. We can have a good time. Yes. And I always think about and the Armenia that we have today is such a small part of it all too. Like, dude. I mean, imagine what we could have been if we could find if we were just looking at the rest of Western Armenia and this and that and then the Turks. Everyone's gonna take credit for it,
Quick tie-in: my friend Richard Kazanjan, side project we do, Arach Media, is one of the three of us: David, myself, and Richard. Yeah. Richard always talks about how his grandmother, who survived the Armenian genocide, then they're from Urfa, which is way south. South.
Next to Syria, basically.
They had a couple of 100 acres of vines in Urfa, okay? So then this is not ancient history. This is 1915, okay? So I'm assuming that those are like ancient growers, right? Yeah. So what we could uncover in that region, which we can't even touch now because it's been, Erzurum or Kareen doesn't have any traces of Armenians, right? The sky's the limit, man.
How much have we lost? Yeah, I mean, but it always does amaze me how even in the Armenia that we have today, so much we can still find so much just within the little part that we have.
And Artsakh still. I am very curious about what can be still done in Artsakh, the Artsakh we have, and the Artsakh we will have later. So that's kind of, I think Armenia needs to be saved, garrisoned, invested, and cleaned up.
No joke.
And, sorry.
The litter.
Side conversation, right. Because at the end of the day, we as winemakers, I'm about to establish a vineyard. The friend that I work with, he has a vineyard. Yeah. We are stewards of the land. The Armenian wine industry really, really needs to worry about what's happening to the physical land. Yeah. Because you can't make wine in a lab.
The more land you lose, the more potential money there's to be. Your company's future is gone because you've lost all the suitable area to build this stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, Artsakh controls so much good water too. That was part of the reason why they wanted to take it for sure, is because there was so much water resources there that now it's in their hands. So
absolutely.
I like this conversation of especially the agrarian companies in Armenia. You should be really concerned with what's going on in Armenia. Your potential is being lost. And I mean, even though let's say they have the mountaintop and our field is ours still. I mean, do you really want? Are you going to have employees, or are you going to have? You're going to be able to bring tourists around with Azeri military posts above the hill of your winery. That's not fun.
We don't have to go far. We there was that incident.
Arani's right by the border, by the way.
Arani is by the border, and as a matter of fact, the first time I saw the crack in the foundation of our, let's call the quote unquote whatever happened in 2018. Yeah. Was my father. He goes, because he was there. He goes, oh my God, the outposts above Arani. They were never allowed to physically build bunkers.
And now they're there. That means that they're going to control they're going to monitor this road that literally, if you're going down south to Sunik, you're passing through there.
You're passing 15 feet away from Azeris all the time, right?
Everyone sees it. You look to the right top, you see it right there.
Yeah. Shout out Amy Kushkerian. She even made a little post about it, the realities of being in the wine industry in Armenia, because their village of Khachik got shot up, recently. So we as winemakers need to be front and center in terms of advising the administration that security is of utmost importance to Armenia.
To our
I don't
industry,
want
to Armenia's
let's
economic potential future. Yeah.
Let's be as superficial as just winemakers in terms of interest of wine industry, right? I mostly care about people there. I care about the soldiers on the ground, right? But let's go superficial and let's just say we want to continue making this amazing wine. You can't make wine without land. You can't make wine with contaminated land. You can't make wine in fields that they're like the farmers don't want to go near because you're going to be yes. And I am, for one, not going to be the kind of person that thinks, like a lot of people say nowadays, that Turks and Azeris are going to one day just go like, oh, okay, cool.
We'll leave you alone.
Yeah, we'll leave you alone. They're going to harass us all the time.
They're going to take the field if they can. I mean, also, why are you going to invest in like a big piece of land if like and winemaking probably takes years for it to really like kick in.
Absolutely.
And it's like, okay, maybe this next year will be no, but like in the next 10 years, if you think half your field's going to be taken over, then like what's the point of that investment? How are we going to bring foreigners to want to invest in our country if nothing's stable in that way, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And actually, all these wine projects that we mentioned, and they're doing foundational work, they have actually consultants from Italy, from Germany, from France, big names. We won't name them now, right? But we want that to continue, right? We want that to continue. We want that to flourish. We want to then re-influence European winemaking. Maybe like how cool would it be if like some French producer in France will propagate and bring the Armenian grape. This is controversial. A lot of winemakers in Armenia want to keep Armenian there. Trigger warning: Armenia is not gonna stay in Armenia. Other producers around the world are interested. I think it's already planted in Italy.
But as long as they credit, right? Will they credit Armenia? Yeah.
Well, geologists and anthropologists will credit Armenia. Science is already crediting Armenia. There will never be a time when Armenia, I think, is going to be called not Armenian. So,
but do you think the reason why they don't want to take it out of the country is so that like only if you want Armenian wine, it has to come from Armenia? Is it a money thing there? You know, like, are they going to cheat us from it? Like, because it's made in another country, then they don't really have to buy Armenian wine anymore. They could just buy it from another place. But
I'll explain it this way: in marketing consulting, right? The Italians versus the French. The Italians kind of lost out a little bit, even though I love Italian wine. I love French wine. What is the number one thing that France exported to the world besides their wine? Their grapes. I make a Malbec in California. Malbec is a French grape.
I see.
Okay,
I
am currently making a Viognier, which is a white French grape, and a Chenin Blanc from the Loire Valley. Everyone knows that when I make a Chenin Blanc, I'm making a white wine in California. But once we start opening our mouths and talking about its history, it immediately goes to the Loire.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, if you get like Armenian producers in Sonoma, all of a sudden get the wind of how awesome that grape is. Every story about that grape is going to pinpoint to Armenia.
I see, and then that could be another avenue for us to spread our stuff and produce it. And that's cool with me. I mean, well then, okay, so maybe we can slowly bring it back to the Armenian-American winemakers here. Right now you're using French wines, but do you have any plans to maybe bringing some Armenian wines in or Armenian grapes in eventually? Is it possible, or what's the issues with that?
Yeah, absolutely. That is actually front and center to back to Kareen Wine, right?
Yeah.
What are we going to be, right? We started as a producer of Malbec. Malbec is a great grape. Obviously, all the Argentinian producers are kind of like, that's their grape, and they do a lot. It's a French grape as well, so good production in France. Started going into, I pay homage to a lot of the areas that I'm in. I went to the Sierra foothills. They're very good. They know Zinfandel and Syrah very well, so I'm also in barrel. When I say I make, right, it's something that I haven't released yet. Currently in barrel, I also have a Syrah and a Cabernet Sauvignon, right? But so these are, again, French grapes. Notice the pattern here. Absolutely, we would like to bring cuttings of Armenian grapes. How to do it is a little bit, there's a bureaucratic process to do that. That is my future. I would like to not be the Armenian winemaker outside of Armenia. I would like to invest in Armenia and do something there as well. But I also want to see what an Armenian grape will do in an amazing place like California. That's important for me, yeah.
And I wonder, so you're saying the bureaucratic system might be a challenge to that?
Through the ag department, there's a dollar sign. So essentially, what you do is you need to make sure that you don't bring disease into the country, right? And there's like a quarantine process, there's a registration process, there's a bureaucratic process.
Is it going to destroy the environment or something?
In the United States is what there's,
how could someone help you with that? Like, would the government of Armenia be instrumental in helping, like, bring Armenian wines here, or like a hypothetical Armenian government, or like
Absolutely,
organizations? I mean, like,
absolutely, absolutely. If anyone's interested in maybe, let's put it out there now. Like, if anyone's interested in talking about this issue, and by the way, it's not like I want to be the first one.
Yeah.
I want to be the only one. If there's an American company out there that wants to tomorrow bring in the Areni grape, talk to me. Let me help you do that.
Yeah,
okay?
let's do it.
Because I guarantee you right now, when somebody in Armenia is going to hear this podcast, especially the ones that want to keep the secret, which is grape is not a secret, bro. It's like it's a grape, man. Like like there's not Italians out there going like Sangiovese can only be in Italy, Chianti can only be in Italy. You know what I mean? Like the Vajadzor. Areni is different. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
No,
Areni is different when it's made in Vajadzor and when it's made in Ararat, in the Ararat
even
Valley.
within the own country,
It's because there's terroir differences.
Right.
There's a
the
difference.
Soil and the water, it all makes a difference.
There's a difference between Cabernet Sauvignon from Bordeaux and from Napa. It's just a natural thing. I want to see what it will do flavor-wise, blending with other grapes-wise, and just uniquely being all on its own in the California terroir. And I'm going to be pinning my life into the Sierra foothills, which is a high-altitude winemaking region. So, it's a high-altitude grape, a high-altitude country like Armenia. I'm in a high-altitude wine region of California, and I want to see what it does. Still going to be making, still going to make Malbec, but I also want to see what this does.
That'd be really cool. Well, have you seen now Georgian wine grapes being exported or being grown in California or somewhere else around the world yet?
Heck yes.
Yeah, they are doing it.
I use heck because I'm also subdeacon in the Armenian church.
Yeah, we're good. I'll save it. Don't worry.
It's okay. Yes, in I believe I forgot his name. It's actually in New York State. New York State has also a very big.
Some wineries up there,
it's the fourth largest wine producing state. California, Oregon, Washington, New York, or actually New York, Washington. One of them, New York, Oregon, or New York are like But New York's pretty big. It's not like a fringe thing, but it's big, but not like the size of California. And the Finger Lakes region there, where they do amazing white wines and Rieslings, brought in Rakatsiteli, which is
a Georgian one, huh?
It was a Georgian one, and I guarantee you it's going to make its way down to maybe Oregon, if not already, because it's a cool climate thing. And at some point, it's going to come to California. There's 2 Georgian wineries that I know of. One, I think, maybe failed, but I've been kind of on my radar. And one is going to be probably my neighbor. Those guys are actively doing something that's in that realm.
And look, New York, Washington, whatever, but California is Armenian territory, man. We gotta take that. We gotta beat them to it, man. I'd be so bummed if we're like, Armenians here, but we're drinking Georgian wine. I'm like,
every hip wine bar I go in NorCal. So you guys are spoiled in SoCal. I love that. Finally, shout out to all their wines are here. But every hipster bar I go to in the Bay Area, it's Georgian wine. Georgian wine, not a lot because they're also it's hard to penetrate the American market.
But you'll see it here and there. Yeah.
Let me tell you this: when I say hi, and I come in like an annoying guy all the time. Hi, do you have any Armenian wines? Guess what the sommelier says? No, but we have Georgian all the time. And I'm like, nah, dude, I asked for an Armenian. I know.
You don't understand.
So we as Armenian, and you bring up a good point. We as an Armenian consumers in America should be very much interested in. We laid the foundation. A lot of ag businesses, from the Central Valley to the growers in Mendocino, Sonoma, to a lot of cool things. I even heard some projects in Central Valley, Paso, closest to you. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see our LA Armenians. By the way, I don't want to be the only 5 Armenian producers. If y'all have an amazing
Temecula, right?
Temecula, Temecula is good, but even better is Santa Barbara. It's huge. It's humongous. It's a beautiful, vast region. And, some of the, well-to-do Armenians, you can start an amazing project in Santa Barbara.
They do like a retirement project.
Do something. Do something. A lot of the Napa is also like Silicon Valley retirement projects. So if you want, you can do that from LA.
No, there are actually a few farmers in between, like that Ventura area, that have some like acres and stuff out there, actually. So
absolutely.
They do other things as well.
Absolutely.
But, all right. Well, so what's now we're going back and forth around the globe here, but it's great. I think it's coming together. My understanding of it all. So let's go back to Armenia. I know we talked about the differences and what Georgia's doing that we're not doing, this and that. But what are some other things that maybe we can, how can we be better in Armenia, or what do they need to maybe take it to the next level as well?
Oh wow, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
So Armenia is like, not to be critical, Armenia has done a lot.
Thank you.
Armenia has done a lot of right things. But you know how, and I think offline we talked about like doing that from the inception to the foundation. That's possible already. Mother Nature gave us our ancestors. Shout out to all Armenian ancestors that gave us the. But how to bring that into that growth phase? That's going to be the test of the Armenian industry. Scaling. Continuing to scale with quality.
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere quality and scale is a problem,
It's an
right?
issue, yeah.
You have beautiful grape grower friends of mine in Lodi, but you also have Woodbridge,
Yeah.
which is like $3 wine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it gave a lot of bad name to Lodi. It also gave Lodi a name because it, like, from New York to Florida, you see Woodbridge and it says Lodi on it, right? But
Yeah.
it was not the so quality and scale. But
It's
then
gonna be
also
the challenge, yeah.
it's going to be the challenge. Also, anytime I go into a winery as an intern before I started making my own wine, winemakers understand, like, tomorrow when I bring in an intern, tomorrow when you come in and want to do an internship with me, if you ever do, I know you're not going to steal my recipe. I think there's a little bit of that protectiveness with Armenians.
I
they're
can
like,
see that.
they're like, well, I mean, I'll show you, like, if you ever want to be, and the third
They're
thing,
not so open to collaboration and stuff.
the third thing that the French did amazingly is every California American foundational winemaker that's now like a superstar winemaker has some kind of a internship origin.
They went there.
They
and
went
studied
there,
it and
and
worked
the
there.
and the Burgundians knew that you're coming to California. You can't steal my thing because
It's gonna be different still at
It's
the end of the day.
Burgundy, and you're in California. It's gonna be different. So I think the interconnectivity of Armenian, what do you call it? Synergy and bringing Armenians into California, which I would love to be part of. If I could bring interns later, I will. And also sending non-Armenians or even Armenian-Americans, and I have stories on that end
To
as
go
well.
there.
To go there and learn,
something
see,
there.
touch the Areni grape. Terroir, the soil. Like, when there is an Armenian wine that comes in, I could already tell that even if I'm not, like, I don't know the Armenian wine flavor as much as I know the American or the French wine flavor, right? I can tell it's an Armenian wine, especially in, like, I've been noticing it in Voskehat, something in that white grape. Like, the imprint of the Armenian soil is in that wine, which is something that French coined the terroir, right?
Yeah, it's cool.
We need to protect our terroir, guys.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
without it, it's game over.
That's what makes
there
it
won't-
special.
There won't. Yes.
Yeah, that's what makes it Armenian.
Right.
Is the land.
It's the land, and
the
we have to really watch out how we're gonna.
I see. So those are a few things that we can do better.
Right.
Master our business logistics, but also protect our country.
Thanks, dude.
yeah.
Not to get into
Put it-
politics, but it's like it's important.
It's all connected.
It's
at the end of the
important.
day.
Not to mention what happened in Artsakh. That was gonna be our front and center of the Armenian
Right.
wine industry.
What were some of the companies that were there? Abris Wines was.
Abris
huge
Wines
there.
was there, and shout out,
I love Abris Wines.
Abris is good. They're still around. They're still an entity, but I don't know if they're no longer doing Artsakh things. There's Abris Wines. There's Aran is from
Right.
there, and shout out to the
Aran,
family.
yeah.
In Jersey Armenians,
Mhm,
right?
that's right.
Amazing.
My mom knows them,
Right. And
What happened to Abris? So, by the way, so they lost. They were in Hadrut and they lost that land.
their winery was taken
I
over.
see, that was one of the video, right?
The
Were sacking it and breaking it,
and it was
making-
surreal to see friends. So I know the family,
Yeah.
Garin, Emilia from the East Coast, the Bagdasarian family. They also had an Artsakh family on the ground. I'm sorry, the last name escapes me. They paid the ultimate price for us being able to talk
Their
today.
son
Their
died,
son
right?
died
Fighting the war?
fighting the war. Absolutely.
They ran that land, and so they lost that vineyard, but then they have other vineyards in Armenia.
They
right
are
now.
trying to rework, and I'm not going to
I
speak
see.
for them. They're trying
Yeah.
to rework what a lot of Artsakh wineries are trying to do. They're trying to do something in Armenia, or some of them have vineyards still intact, partially.
In
Not-
Artsakh, like
and
half of it
I
is
don't think
still
that's
there.
the story with Apris, again, don't quote me.
But I've heard of another one where it's like half the vineyard is still there.
It's half the vineyard is still there, but in any way...
But the troops are right there, too.
But the troops are there. It's a volatile area. How are you going to cultivate it? Number one. Number two, again, back to terroir, right? They now need to scale still, right? Because you're not a volunteer enterprise. You need to do something, right? That vineyard is not enough.
Yeah,
and all of the... I'll give you the worst of it. All of the best viticultural lands are not with us anymore in Artsakh.
Yeah,
because that's Hadrut in south. But I think I want to still work in Artsakh. That is actually my desire. My dream is to have a vineyard in Artsakh. And if I have to go higher into the elevation for the time being until that land is ours again,
find a way to make it work.
I would like to make it work because vines can grow in particular very interesting.
Well, do you think
places.
you'd have to create some sort of hybrid or genetic editing or something?
I actually
to make
think,
it work?
and there are better people to talk about that. But I actually think my mind is going there. I actually think there are, because we're like a breadbasket. We have 500 indigenous grapes that we still, of which like dozens we're working with. So we still have
other ones we could try out.
We can try out.
Yeah.
So I guarantee you that there's already a grape that will marry the higher elevations.
Bring in the experts and then see what you can make with it, and it's possible. That'd be cool.
That's important. Yeah.
Well, I guess we can maybe end this conversation with how can now the listener right now help support Armenian winemaking from Armenia and Armenian-American winemaking. Like, what should we do? We see the brands, buy them at the stores?
Amazing. Yeah, you can, you buy them at the stores.
If there is at the stores, you know.
Right.
Most people listening might not be near them, you know.
True.
LA Armenians are privileged that way.
Seek out small producers like myself. Agajanians, they're a large grower, but they're also a producer, right? Rarecat, Luso Delatera, Lilar. Look us up. We all ship, okay? We're artisanal, we're small. I'm Greg from Kareen, KareenWine.com. You can buy directly from me. You can support all the infrastructure that's around, which is like, you know, the merchants here in SoCal. Not that many in NorCal, but some. When you go to a shop, for example, what my father and I have done with Ararat Brandy. Yeah. I don't drink brandy. I'm just telling you right now.
You're a wine guy.
Well, wine guy. Used to be a beer guy. I like beer, you know. In my youth years, I drank a lot of vodka, right? But I'm a wine guy. But when I go to Bevmo, I see Ararat, I just pick it up.
Yeah, to support it.
I support it, right? And then people go like, well, what am I going to do? Accumulate thousands of bottles? No, then you're going to go to an event or a function.
You gift it. Or this. Yeah, 100%.
Hike, what I'm talking about, not only are we now experiencing a boom in Armenian wine production, both here domestically, everybody I met, everybody I talk about, Agajanian, Luso Delatera, Rarecat, and Napa, humbly myself, these are wines, Lilar, right? These are wines that I will tell you, buy any of them, they'll be better than 90% of the supermarket things that you can buy in Safeway, or you guys have Vaughn's here, whatever, right? Yeah. Not to mention that the Armenian wines are now coming into the Whole Foods, the Total Wines, and more, right? And those are also good standard bearers. If you're drinking $1,000 Napa wines, you can still bring a Zora and woo somebody with that $130 ancient vine product that he has, right? You can still at least so what I'm saying is support us, because we're trying to support our culture, and we're the stewards of our culture in foreign lands, because predominantly Armenia is going to be exporting that stuff.
What's funny is where Kyle said something great. He's like, look, you're going to be getting drunk anyway on the weekends, you know, might as well drink Armenian alcohol. It's just as good as anything else, if anything better. Well, isn't there like a website, armenianwines.com, or like a centralized website where people can does it get shipped nationally, or is it like selective?
Right. So distribution is an issue always too, right? Especially in America. For example, I talk to people in Australia, they can barely get Armenian wines. So import export is a very important thing. I'm blessed that I know a lot of entities that import and export. Shout out to the Lebanese folks I know, the Palestinian folks that I know that are doing great stuff, importing amazing wines into America, as well as the Armenian importers and distributors. There are multiple entities that you can currently today go and buy Armenian wines, whether you're in NorCal or SoCal. SoCal, you have direct merchants.
Storefronts and stuff.
The storefronts. Remedy Liquors is a great one. Mission Liquors that has a multitude of stores. Small operations as well do good. Total Wines and More now has a lot of the Storica. That's a good distributor that you should, if you want, go on Storica. Storica.com or Storica Wines. Just Google Storica Wine, and that will be like a bouquet of brands. That will be like your Zulals, your Kushes.
The Armenian website? Or,
It's a distributor. So these are Armenian people doing work for the North American market. Okay, so that's important.
Cool.
So they got stuff in New Jersey, Massachusetts,
Nice.
right? Because one thing that the consumer doesn't know, each state is like a country in America. So I, as a producer, I would love to ship anywhere, but sometimes I have issues, licensing issues, from California to Michigan to Utah. Utah is a whole like crazy state to ship to because they have a lot of dry laws. Louisiana is another one like that.
Laws, yeah.
Prohibition, religious laws too.
So if you're an Armenian restaurant in Massachusetts or wherever, it's possible for them to add Armenian wine to their menu
Absolutely.
by shipping using these services and
Absolutely.
shipping them in. Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
a great first step if you ask
Right.
me. Every Armenian restaurant should have Armenian alcohol.
And you can. There's a Fat and Happy does the bigger guys. So there's gradations of Armenian producers, right? From like 600 cases is what I produce. I'm a small guy, right?
Yeah.
To thousands of cases, such as like Karas and Armenia LLC. They do a bigger production. Voskevas, I believe, does more. Don't quote on which exactly ones, but you can get the art if the need and the want needs to be there, and we are here to kind of usher in and steward. And there's a symbiosis, right? I always kind of feel between the domestic here, American domestic producers, and the Armenian ones. We're part of the Armenian wine ecosystem, global ecosystem, right? Whenever I am representing something, let's say, like, for example, I'm part of the Lodi wine conglomerate, right?
Yeah.
When they see that bottle and it says Kareen, they're like, oh, cool, it's Zinfandel, just like me. Yeah, but what's that name? What's that symbol? I have like I have the Arebacha Chantan, like we went as Armenian as can be, right? Not because we want to be like a cookie cutter and like a little bit like, but I wanted people to understand that this is an Armenian producer. No questions, ifs, ands, or buts. When and if my wine makes it to Alaska one day, right? Like if an Armenian there looks it up and goes, whoa, is that an Armenian brand? They'll know. And if a non-Armenian picks it up, they'll be like, what is this? And then they start researching, go to my website, you'll hear my story.
And it'll help grow the, even though it's an Armenian-American or it's made in Armenia, it'll be part of this connected, like, growth, not growth, but like exposure.
Absolutely.
It's like a connected exposure that you're doing.
Cuisine is important. Wine is a food product.
And that's what those restaurants would be great. There's plenty of good Armenian restaurants that non-Armenians love and stuff, and then they get that's where they'll find out about the stuff too.
We need to walk away from that. Chef Arthur would always talk about this. Shout out to him, like Otara Molutun, right? Which we were always like, I want that. I want the American stuff, right?
The French stuff.
We have good things.
We have good things. We have almost better things.
French do good. We all do good, but we need to be very proud of what we can do now, and we're doing good stuff. We need to protect our land. We need to protect our industries. We need to be proud of our food scene, and we need to be ambassadors of it. Meaning you, myself, but you as a consumer. Yeah, bring our stuff. Enjoy
Take it to your parties with your non-Armenian friends and tell them about it and this and that, and I guarantee you they'll like it. And next time they'll be aware when they're at the store. They're like, oh, Armenian ones, I had this once. Real fast, LA has a Guinea Fest every year, or you can go there and you can kind of be exposed to some of these brands as well, learn more about that stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Anything else we should give a shout out to, where people can like learn more about these things?
So Wines of Armenia, right? Stepan Bagdasaryan's doing good things. He ships places. Again, as a consumer, you're gonna see these issues of shipping. Where, like, if you're in Wisconsin, can I ship to you? I don't know.
Yeah,
different.
It's tough.
It's whatever the licensing is. But Storica, Wines of Armenia, Guinea Fest as a local LA thing, right? Well, if you're from Wisconsin and you want to fly to,
it'd be a fun event to come to.
Now, actually, Guinea Fest has 2 tiers, right? Where they're branching out to doing like kind of worldly wines, right? Nice. And I think in November, they're gonna have a second international Guinea Fest as they're calling it. So that's the American ecosystem that we have, as well as producers here domestically. I know the few in California. There's things on the East Coast. That's the beginning.
And if you're in Armenia, it's very easy to go to any of these wineries and do a tour there, and they'll show you around and everything, you know. And I know when you're in Birthright Armenia, do some programs, they take you to some of these wineries and stuff. So if you're in Armenia, it's definitely worth it. They have beautiful wineries too, very like scenic and cute places to go and also just take pictures. And
it's phenomenal. The scene there is blowing up. I'm jealous being like the lone wolf here, even though our California wines are good too.
Yeah, they're all right. But you'll even better. You'll best of both worlds. You have a little bit of both eventually. So,
absolutely.
So Greg, thank you so much for sharing all this with us, and best of luck with the scene. And looking forward to drinking amazing Armenian wine with you. So,
Haik, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
You are listening to Hajduk Talks, the official podcast of the AYF West. I'm Haik Minasyan, and we're just a couple of Armenians talking in the world.
A couple of Armenians talking in the world.